Hi everyone, it's Mark. I hope you're doing really well. So you loved the orange one, and today I'm going to be doing some blues. So this is a couple of parts of this process, and this is about preparing the base before we do a dry swipe over the top. So as you can see, I'm using some different tones of blue, and I'm just using my brush to spread that paint out across the base of the canvas. The paint itself is only mixed with water, and I will go through the paints that I've used, but again, don't forget to check out and expand the box below because there's lots of information in there for you too. And I have sped up this part of the process. I don't want you to get bored. So I'm now going to use a dry brush, and I'm literally going to place the brush on the canvas and just swirl away. I'm just not really pressing hard, but I'm pressing hard enough so the brush meets the surface area of the canvas, and there's just enough liquid paint on that surface to ensure when I use the brush and I swirl it over that surface area, it leaves a swirl and a line where I go. And I'm going to do that until this whole surface area is covered. Okay, so here are the colours that I've used for the swirls. You can see that I've used 3 different brands of paint, and all I did was added a bit of water so that they were fluid. But these are the colours, so Pearl Electric Blue by Arteza, Prussian Blue Hue by Pebeo, and then we've got the Sky Blue Light and the Cobalt Blue Ultramarine by Amsterdam. So they're my colours. Everything will be listed in the description box below, so just expand that for more information. So let me take you in now for a close-up of the canvas so you can see how that brush stroke and those lines have been left. And this is now just going to dry before we continue with the process. But just look at that depth. Look at all those swirls and those lines across that surface area. And that's just simply created by blending in some blue tones or whatever colour you want to use on the canvas first in liquid form, and then using a dry brush over the top. Hi everyone, so I'm going to do the swipe, and I asked you for some ideas on what colours to choose. So I've picked 5. I couldn't obviously do everyone's suggestion, but it's given me so many more ideas to maybe do in the future on another creation. So let me go through the ones that I'm going to use. I'm going to use an iridescent silver. I've got a brilliant green. I've got a pearl white. I have a phthalo blue, and I've also got a opaque vivid pink. So they're the 5 colours I'm going to now use for the swipe. So I'm excited for this. As always, it's just mixed with paint and water, 1 part paint and about 1/2 to 3/4 water. So it's a little bit thicker than I'd normally use for a Dutch pour, but thick enough so when I use the brush I can really drag that paint from where I'm going to layer it to the outer edge. Anyway, I'm going to show you the process and we'll talk through it as we go. So I have just explained the colours that I'm going to use, but just in case you want a close-up of them, don't forget they're always listed in the description box below. So just expand that and I list all the brands and the names of the colours that I'm using. So Brilliant Green, Iridescent Silver, Phthalo Blue, Pearl White, and an opaque Vivid Pink. So there we go. They're the colours for the swipe. So I'm not going directly in the centre for this one. I do have the embroidery hoop and that's going to be my guide. So I'm now going to place each of these colours around the outer side of the embroidery hoop, just around that hoop. And you can see here I'm just doing one colour at a time until I have all those colours around that embroidery hoop. And this was about having an off-centre design. I've done many that were purely in the centre, but I wanted to change it up a little bit, and I really want to think about the lighting with this one, how the paints will interact when they're swiped, and what colours I'm going to use so it really kind of shines and shimmers. But anyway, let me leave you with this. I'm going to use the one colour at a time, load the paint onto the canvas, and then use my sponge brush to swipe. Okay, so that's all the paint around the edge. And now I'm using this sponge brush and I'm just dipping the sponge into the paint and I'm just slowly dragging it across the canvas. I need to apply a little bit more pressure to it. So as I dip the sponge into the paint and drag, I'm going to go over it a couple of times just to extend those lines, but also to ensure that I take all those colours with me. And this is a two-stage process. I want to do this one first, and then I want to go over the top with some of the lighter colours, including the pink and the silver. Okay, so that's the swiping. I'm going to remove the embroidery hoop, just slowly pick it up from the canvas. There shouldn't be too much splashing from that. And now I'm going to just go around that hoop line. I am going to fill in with the blue a little bit more of a prominent line going all the way around, but I also want to add to these lines on top. So I want to add some more pink and definitely some more silver, but I'll show you that process as we go. I'm not going to use too much paint, but I am going to just enhance that circle so it's a more of a defined circle in the middle, and then I'm going to swipe over the top of the lines that are already there. As I'm doing this, I'm thinking about the silver and the pink, specifically on the top of the colours that are already there. That's just to give a little bit more dimension, a little bit more depth, but it's also to look at the light. So when I look at the painting, when I'm looking at the overall composition, it's about how that light's going to reflect and bounce off of that creation too. So I've got those darker lines underneath, and then by just adding a small amount of pink and silver all the way round, including some of that pearl white as well, that's going to really help with that light and the interpretation of that colour palette. So I'm going to go around the full circle and I'll show you the results afterwards. I'm really happy with how it looks. It's definitely 3D, and I really love that swirl on the background. I have defined the circle a little bit more by just adding a little bit of blue with my paintbrush. I'm loving the after effects of adding a little bit more of that silver, that pearl white, and that pink on top. And now I'm going to use my spray paint and go all the way around the edge. So I've got a prominent edge on the side just here. I'm outside, I'm using good ventilation, and remember to check all your safety equipment when you're using spray paints. But I'm just going to go around this edge, and then I'm going to reveal the final creation. So are you ready to see the final? Okay, I'm going to remove the plastic, and voila, here we go. This is the creation. I loved the orange one because I had designed the background a while ago and the inspiration came to me. So this was quite fast paced, this one. I literally did the background swirls and then carried on with the process and swiped on top. And I just love these colour choices. So thank you to each and every one of you for suggesting some colours for me. There's many more on my list that I want to try and experiment with too. But I guess the question is, what kind of swirls shall I do on the background for the next one? Maybe that's a question you can help me with. So a big thank you to each and every one of you, and I really hope I get to see you again in the next video. Have a great week, everyone. Take care. Bye.